Grace and peace, family. It's your boy Brandon McCrae, aka Bmac Music, coming to you with another installment of Wisdom on Wednesday. Today we continue our series entitled Faith Over Fear. In the previous weeks we've discussed the backdrop in the life of Elijah. Today we'll discuss the battle found in 1 Kings chapter 18 verses 19 through 46. First thing we see in these particular passages is that there is a separation. There is a separation. This is a demarcation between God and between Baal. How do we see the separation? The prophet Elijah tells Ahab, hey, go get those all those that eat at Jezebel's table, 450 prophets of Baal, 400 prophets of Ashtoreth, and meet me on Mount Carmel. There is going to be a showdown on Mount Carmel, faced with those people that have been following those prophets of Baal. The prophet Elijah offers these seminal words that are foundational to our understanding and argumentation today. He says, how long will you halt between two opinions? The more accurate Hebrew translation is, how long will you hobble around the two crutches of indecision? You continue to injure yourself by hobbling on those crutches of indecision. Either you're going to choose God as God or you're going to choose Baal as Baal. So we see that there is a separation. Not only do we see a separation, but secondly, we see that there is a sacrifice. And what's more important and pertinent to our argumentation today is the level of sacrifice. Though those prophets of Baal offered seemingly self-thought sacrifices, they just didn't give any forethought. They just did what it is that they did. We see a difference in the life of the prophet Elijah. Firstly, we must understand that to Jewish culture, sacrifice was important. There were burnt offerings mentioned in Leviticus chapter 1. There were grain offerings mentioned in Leviticus chapter 2. There were sacrifice and well-being offerings in Leviticus chapter 3. Sin offerings in Leviticus chapter 4. And guilt offerings in Leviticus chapter 5. To the Hebraic culture, sacrifice was inevitable to their way of life. The writer of Hebrews in chapter 9 verse 22 comes back to tell us that without the shedding of blood there is no remission of sins, and we understand fully in the life of Jesus Christ that he was the perfect substitutionary sacrifice, the sinless slain lamb before the foundations of the earth that was the sacrifice for us. But before there was Jesus Christ, those Jews, those within Hebraic culture, were required to offer sacrifice. So sacrifice was commonplace within Jewish culture. But this is what Elijah did to set his sacrifice apart from those of Baal. The first thing he did in verse 30 is that he summoned the people. He said, come near to me. He wanted them, could it have been that he wanted them to see how he rebuilt the altar as a illustration of how they were to rebuild their faith in Yahweh God? He said, come near to me. So Elijah summoned the people in sacrifice. In verse 30 through 32, Elijah sanctified the space of his sacrifice. He took 12 stones and rebuilt the altars that had been torn down. And in the rebuilding, the 12 was indicative of the 12 tribes of Israel, those 12 sons of Jacob. The 12 jugs of water that were then poured on the sacrifice were remnant and reminding of the 12 tribes of Israel, those 12 sons of Jacob. Then he built in the name of Yahweh. May I implore you that before you offer a sacrifice, maybe it is that you are to rebuild those spaces in your life that have been torn down by circumstance, situation, and or trial. Not only does Elijah summon the people in sacrifice, not only does he sanctify the space in sacrifice, but lastly, he sacrifices at a certain time. If you are a Bible reader in the Pentateuch and you understand that there are morning and evening sacrifices, this particular sacrifice that Elijah offered came at the space known as evening sacrifice, about 3 p.m. This sacrifice in Exodus chapter 29 verse 38 through 42, or in Numbers chapter 28 verses 1 or verses 3 through 8, you would understand is the latter part of the sacrifice. So he waited for a specific time to offer this specific sacrifice that was set aside, that was sanctified. Listen, next week, y'all, we're going to delve more into the story as we discover how to put our faith over our fear. Do 3 things for me: like, share, and comment on this video. Let's make something God go viral. And until next week, I want you to remember this: Elijah did not simply sacrifice, but he set the stage for signs and wonders. This is Wisdom on Wednesday, and your boy Brandon McCrae. I can't wait to see you next week. Holla at your boy.